Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Football RPG. I am Mike, your main host. You'll notice the guy next to me, you can't tell who it is, but that is Jet Pack Galileo, the Italian scientist himself. Jet Pack, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. My face is right there, so I figure that's good enough. You guys have a slick intro.
Hey, thank you.
Custom video. It's pretty good.
Spent a little time in CapCut, Canva, all the works. This is my very good secret identity. It's just Travis Kelce being excited. But I'll let the people see my face. We're here to talk about some 2025 rookies because everyone should head over and check out the Fantasy Football Astronauts Rookie Guide. Jetpack, when is that dropping?
Oh, that's a great question. So the dev, FF Coder, he's working on it. I keep giving him new stuff to add, and I think that's part of the problem of why it takes longer. But all the grades are in. I have we've submitted it to our subscribers, so they can access it through the Discord. They just don't have the fun UI interface yet. That will be coming hopefully end of the week. But yeah, it's been a really good project. Of course, you're doing scouting reports with us, focusing on the running backs. Really happy to have you on. And then we have Tim Bolin, who's been doing tight ends, and then Josh Zavis Subin. He's been awesome working with. So the team, as far as film grades go, I think for us, big picture, I'm excited to start building out consensus grades. So that'll be really cool, where it's not just oh, this is my opinion on everything, but I've kind of found that collectively, the more analysts we have, the more accurate we are. So that'll be cool. And then cool to talk about, where we differentiate on guys, but then also ultimately looking at big picture, you get 4 or 5 analysts together, that ends up being a pretty solid film grade. So,
yeah. One of the things that brought me to the Astronauts in the first place, obviously you rock, but the little thing you put up every year, it's by the way, our draft grades are actually more predictive than draft capital when everyone's pointing to draft capital is all that matters. Draft capital is all that matters. No, Jetpack's opinion is all that matters. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's something that I stumbled upon on accident, right? The first idea was, it was 2019. I said, let me just see, I just want to scout. I don't want to record all my opinions on all these players. And then after the first 2 years, I had a really good 2019. But after the first 2 years, it was, hey, this is just as good or better than draft capital in some cases. So that's been a lot of fun as a project. That's not something that I expect to happen long term, big picture, because it's kind of absurd that you can say, oh, this is how I rank these guys, and you don't talk to them, you don't put them on the field, you don't do anything like that. But really, just watching the ball or watching football and understanding the game is good enough. And in some cases, I think GMs are overthinking things or overcomplicating things for themselves. So,
yes. Nothing worse than watching somebody that you think is extremely talented and they just have to sit behind someone that you think is cheeks for a couple of weeks. And it's come on, I know you're doing the sitting thing, but put him out there, please.
Yeah, right.
But people that are subscribed to this channel, which if you've listened this far, you all should, but they've heard us talk about Tech McMillan, Ashton Genty, Travion Henderson, all the big names. Who were some of your just favorite players in this draft cycle? Not necessarily the top, very cool, sexy ones. Let's talk about, some deeper names that you're excited about.
Yeah. Bashul Tootin. He's probably my favorite player. Definitely a running back. And I think to me, he's very Raheem Mostert, Devon A-Chain kind of guy. And so any sort of Shanahan's game, he could be just that 9 or 3rd round, 4th round pick. And if that hits, then he's going to be great in 2027. He'll just be a RB1. So I love his game. I think the speed translates really well. And what I was most impressed about is how he converts his speed into power. And so he's willing to run through people. And I think that kind of separates him from A-Chain. But from that standpoint, I think I'll take. I don't even think he has bad vision, but I'll take vision questions because I read that in other scouting reports that okay, he has misses, but I wasn't really bothered by that. I thought when he's on the perimeter or he's searching for the edge, he does a really good job. And ultimately that's how you're going to use him anyways. But when you get him in the right scheme, he can be an RB1. And so those kind of players where, maybe he's a 3rd round pick or even day 3 pick, like, that's how you win your fantasy league. So, he's a great running backs don't matter back and player. And I just love his style. And he was a lot more impressive than I wanted him to be. I went in thinking like, oh, he'll just be like a small, fast guy, but he's actually really good. So
he's a lot of fun. I actually, Virginia Tech alma mater, I have watched Tootin all season. The entire time I was doing all these rankings, I was like, I need to bump him down because I know there's a little bias in there. After the combine, the bias goes away.
I think he's better than TreVeyon Henderson.
Ooh.
So if you are looking for a type of player that does those things, I would rather have Tootin, just straight up.
Okay. What specifically leads you to think that?
He's faster. He's more explosive, and that's kind of TreVeyon's whole bit. I think TreVeyon has bad vision in the general sense of he will just like run it right up his offensive line's rear, and he does that very frequently. And Tootin doesn't do that, so I consider that to be a good trait. And so, just as far as that goes, I think TreVeyon Henderson, I think he'll be a good player. But if we're looking for the skill sets, they weigh the same. I think TreVeyon probably better in pass pro and all that. But pure speed wise, Tootin's better, and I think he's better on the fly and reading blocks and setting people up. So
I completely agree with setting people up down the field and like turning a 15-yard gain into a 90-yard gain. I also, something I think isn't talked about enough, Henderson is very linear once he gets going. Right. Like once he hits that top speed, that he's not turning. He's just, I'm going in this direction, catch me if you can. Tootin has a little bit of that like, curvilinear acceleration that he can actually weave down the field, which I think that's exciting. And I wanted to sneak curvilinear into this podcast.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. His hips are looser for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So
someone that I was surprised while we were going through and doing this rookie guide work, you still believe in Rocket Sanders for the most part, if I'm reading these grades correctly. What is the best case scenario you think for him?
He's troubled because he'll be a day 3 back. So I think there's enough on the tape for me to say this can be a big, guy who runs people over and maybe has a couple juke moves or enough lateral agility to make one guy miss and then convert that upfield. But I do like him more than like Caleb Johnson, for example, who, so in that category of guy, though, I think he'll be a limited role. In my range, my running back range is kind of weird. I'll have everybody that's over 80 is really like a 2nd round pick. Yeah. Just in terms of running back value. And then everybody over 75 on the like film grade scale is somebody who I think, could potentially be like an RB2 for a team if somebody gets hurt, and that's kind of the way the whole running back and fantasy environment works. And so in my mind, that's kind of how I see Sanders. If, he'll get drafted day 3, let's say, or, round 4 or 5, something like that. He goes to be a backup wherever starter gets hurt. I'm going to be confidently playing him in my flex spot or whatever. Whereas like somebody who, is not as talented, I would just kind of say, oh, let me wait and see or whatever. Right. But I think he'll be able to take advantage of the volume, even if the draft capital is not there. He just needs the opportunity. That's my opinion.
No, that's completely fair. Let's just talk about Caleb Johnson a little bit more since you already started to rain on my parade there.
Are you a Caleb guy?
I didn't think that I was a Caleb guy until I saw how low some of his things were on there. The 2.9 for elusiveness, sorry to sneak peek. You guys should all go subscribe there to take a look at it. But in the elusiveness category, do you just think that he has 0 lateral ability? Like, why do you think that he is so not elusive?
I think he needs a runway to win. And Iowa did a really good job at that. But if you contact him behind the line or are a threat within the first 5 yards, I think he really struggles to make something more. And there are opportunities where it takes him too long to change direction. And so like he's a good momentum runner. And if he's in his 4th step, he'll be able to fall forward, and people like that. But as far as actually being evasive, I don't see it. And so when you get him going and you're in at the second level, that's great. Like I think he's fine there, and he can shift and do what he needs to do to snake through the defense. And that second level stuff, that's great. But I think behind the line and in those first 3 or 4 yards, that's a real challenge for him. So in that way, he's not special to me. Whereas like a Tootin, right? He can solve those problems. There was one, he's getting hit like 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He hurdles the guy and then he immediately converts it upfield. Yep. And he runs through the next tackle. He just runs the guy over. And it's those kind of situations. Caleb's just going to fall down. And that's fine, right? Because that's not maybe how you're using him in the scheme, or you're not going to run the sweep that way. But it's those kinds of things, talent-wise, that I think that's a limitation for him athletically. That's why he's lower on my grades.
When you started talking about that too, was that the Miami game? Which game?
I don't know. I think it was like a small school.
Okay. But I remember he had a couple of plays like that against Miami where it looked like he was dead in the water and he just decided to not be.
Yes, right. Yeah.
He just has that trump card at the end of the day that he's like, I'm more jittery than you, I'm faster than you, and then I'm also weirdly stronger than you at the same time.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's crazy. And I don't know what his injury was, but he's wearing that big old knee brace, right?
Yep.
Those things are so hard to move in.
He doesn't care.
What's going to happen when he's out of that? Maybe he has more agility in there that you don't really necessarily see because, those braces are miserable. But
you have to wear those as you get older. I know that you're 600 years old.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I'm wearing them right now in my seat, and it is what it is. I'm no longer agile like Tootin. So
yeah, you used to be, but some of the things you were talking about with Caleb Johnson kind of reminded me of Ollie Gordon. I don't know if you like this description, but it's kind of a situational running back. If Caleb Johnson or Ollie Gordon go somewhere with a really good offensive line and they're going to get them to the second level consistently, then we can start to see them be really exciting players because big guy can run fast further down the field. That is fun. But if they go somewhere like, the Pittsburgh Steelers with a confusing offensive run game, or the Cincinnati Bengals who offensive line, they've been calling me up to see if I'm busy on Sundays, they'd be completely dead in the water. Is that kind of how you view both of those guys? If they go to a good landing spot, maybe we'll start taking darts on them.
Yeah, Ollie is my only player that's under 70 for the running backs, which means basically that I have him rated as undrafted. So I didn't watch any 2023 film. I only saw 2024, and he's terrible.
Yep.
In all the ways that I don't want to say that about a person, right? He was not good and looked miserable. He did not enjoy being out there, and we couldn't find his way around the edge. Would just go down very easily and had no solutions if there was not a clear path. So he's super interesting to me because, somebody in your fantasy draft is going to be taking him in the second round or third round just because of the name. And, it's nice to be able to pass on that. So,
let's shift gears a little bit. I know you for all of your wide receiver work. You've crushed that over the years. Who are some of your favorite wide receivers outside of, consensus top 5? Are there a couple of guys that you're looking at that could sneak into day 2, or maybe a first round guy that isn't on our radars now that it should be?
Yeah, I think Jaden Higgins is actually pretty good. He's one of the more sneaky guys. So he's in some people's top 5s. He's out of some people's top 5s. For me, he's solid in there. I think he should be a late first rounder. And I get the idea of him being stiff, and I think there is a little bit of that, but he has enough lateral shake, and he looked really good at the Senior Bowl as far as how natural he is off the line. And when he is making his break, he does have enough quickness through there that I was impressed by, and I think there's an athletic ceiling there that will really perform well as that X receiver. So to me, he's Michael Pittman Jr. And Michael Pittman has his own limitations, but that's a wide receiver too if you get him in the right volume spot. So and Michael Pittman Jr. was also a second rounder, and so when you're coming up with comps for these guys, I think it's good to look back and say, I'm thinking of him as a first. The guy I'm comparing him to is a second rounder. Like, but the value is there, and so for me, Jaden Higgins, I think is underrated in the overall sense. So some people will compare him to Nico Collins. He's not that explosive. He's not that. His strides are not that big. He doesn't cover that much space. But Nico is so mobile, but he is more advanced than Nico was, and he's smarter, and he has a complete release package. He knows how to set and stem defenders, and Nico couldn't do that until his probably the middle of his second season in the NFL. And so that was a huge part of why Nico took so long, regardless of what you think about, the quarterback play. Nico took a long time because he didn't really know what he was doing. He's an unlocked athlete, so he could be anything. But he didn't figure it out until the third year with Stroud. And I think Higgins will be able to make an immediate impact because he's pretty smart. And he knows how to do all of the wide receiver, big time, NFL wide receiver stuff that Collins didn't do, even though he's a lesser athlete in that sense.
I completely agree. I think I got kind of like a weird taste in my mouth when people were talking about Jaden Higgins because they were like locked and loaded top 15 pick, absolute steal of the draft. He's going to be a monster. And I was like, no, he's like pretty good. Like, yeah, that's okay. It's okay to have guys that are pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. That's most of the receivers. So, I like Jalen Noel too. I don't even know how to pronounce all these guys' names. I just don't know.
Just read them.
Yeah, I just read them. But yeah, I have a big chunk of guys who are in the like middle tier grade wise. So almost everybody is under 82, and then 82's kind of has turned into my threshold for like this guy is like a late first. It was 80, but I have enough misses in my 80 range that 82 is becoming the way that I think about it. Okay. So yeah, a bunch of guys under 82, McMillan, Burden, Higgins, Noel, they're all in that kind of family. And then that next group that, in my mind, that second round range, I really like Trey Harris. I think he's kind of fun.
I like Trey a lot too.
Yeah, Trey's fun. Kyle Williams, of course, he's grown in popularity a lot. He's really good as far as doing all of the release work and the stem work. Everything checks out there. Plenty explosive. You're going to drop the ball every once in a while, and that's part of the game. But I would say the guy that has snuck into that like second round grade for me, and there's no way he's going to be drafted here, is Keandre Lambert-Smith from Auburn.
He's fun.
I think he's great. I think he's basically Darius Slayton, and 4.37 checks that box, like legit acceleration, and then he has some of the best deceleration in the class. And so because of his ability to stretch the field and then also come back downhill, that skill set is so Darius Slayton and very much NFL starter. If you go to a good team, that NFL starting role can be high volume, unlike the way it is with the Giants. If you go somewhere good, then that becomes a fantasy viable player. So for me, he's second rounder, even though I don't think he'll be any earlier than probably round 5.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys in this class that I think are better than the names being floated around on day 2. One of those guys that comes to mind, Kyle Williams. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I like so Kyle has, I think, some of the best releases in the class, and then his vertical speed is so obvious. And we could say, oh yeah, Pac-12. Those were like the only two remaining teams.
Pac-2.
Yeah, Pac-2. So those 4.40 in that league is like, that's just pure lightning to those guys. And so, in that sense, it kind of is what it is. Like he didn't really face anybody that was match worthy, but in the sense of being able to stack players and be competitive at the catch point, even though he does have those drops every once in a while, that like complete skill set, even if it's a smaller guy, that's an NFL starter as well. And so I saw the other day, like the Niners are having him out for a visit. I think if he's available in the second round, he's a Niner. Like that's exactly Kyle Shanahan's guy. It's the same almost the same model and as Brandon Ayuk. And, really it's all those things of reliable receiver, senior guy, well-developed, has the ability, can do all these things. That for me, that's kind of where Kyle Williams fits. So yeah, I really like him a lot.
I would really like to see him in kind of that Rashid Shaheed role. I know Shaheed reportedly ran a 4.3. That was also at a pro day for an FCS team. Probably didn't actually run a 4.3, but I think they win very similar in the way that they attack vertically, and then they're just very good ball tracking and like underrated at the catch point. So that would be a lot of fun.
That's a good comp. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other wide receivers that you're just like, man, this guy is good and no one is talking about him?
No, Keandre Lambert-Smith is my guy for sure. I think DK from Florida is also pretty useful.
Okay.
I'm a coach too, so I'll think about things schematically. DK does such a good job setting up the safety on posts and corners in ways that, most of these receivers, when you're going through them, they don't have that ability. And he's very natural with how he gets the defender leaning and how he operates his stem. And you can tell he's well versed in it. So I think he's got good utility as well. For me, that ends up being like a 3rd round grade, but he might be a 7th round pick, but has useful speed. There's a little bit made about drops with him, but he can go up and get the ball. So functionally, to me, he's kind of like Christian Watson. I know Christian Watson's 6'4" or whatever. Yeah. But the way that you're going to use him is very Christian Watson. And you might drop the ball, but you have a fast 4.3 athlete who can stretch the field and has enough nuance to be able to, make open space, like find open space downfield for big gains. So DK would be a kind of my late sleeper.
Yeah. While we're talking about Florida, so while I was watching them, I actually preferred Badger. I thought that he had a little bit more twitch and excitement there. How do you feel about Elijah?
Yeah, I like Badger. I think he's so physical on the outside that he's fun to watch. So for me, he's in the 75 range. So that's still kind of day 2 category, but might fall into the 4th round. I think his draft cap will be better. But yeah, I think the thing that makes him fun to watch is the toughness that he plays with. And he can bully guys on the outside. So yeah, I like Badger. I think, he's physical after the catch, but he's not particularly elusive. I think, overall agility, he's a little bit stiff. So to me, that's what kept him down. But in terms of aggressiveness and being that kind of, potentially like a Romeo Dobbs kind of winner, I have him comped as like a Zay Jones. But that's kind of the family of guy that I'm at with him.
He's somewhere on the Zay Jones spectrum, which is a very, very wide spectrum.
Yeah, weird spectrum.
Maybe he gets suspended. Maybe he ends up a wide receiver 2 for a random season. Who knows?
Yeah.
I have one more question on the wide receivers, and then I think maybe let's talk about some quarterbacks because I know you have some thoughts on them. If you had to pick one of the consensus top 5 wide receivers, we'll throw Travis Hunter in there. I know you don't think that he's going to be bad. Tet McMillan. I keep saying McMillian, which is a great nickname.
It is. Yeah.
Matthew Golden, Luther Burden, and then is that 5? 1, 2, 3. That's only 4. Who is the consensus wide receiver 5 right now? Oh, Ibuka, somewhere in that range. Yeah. If you had to pick one of those 5 that's going to stink, we shouldn't touch him in our drafts, who would it be?
I wouldn't pick one of those 5, but I do think Ibuka is a little bit overrated. To me, he's a 2nd rounder because I don't think he. So I'd say this, right? So I've watched Ibuka his whole career at Ohio State. I'm not a fan of Ohio State or whatever, but he's a Devy guy for a lot of people. 5-star coming out, and so he had a lot of hype around him. His sophomore year, I thought he was excellent, and he played. He was very impressive, and he played on the outside a little bit. He had plenty of speed that was pretty obvious to be able to tack downfield. But every subsequent year he got less and less explosive. And I know he had a tightrope surgery, and
Yep.
so I think that's part of the challenge with his eval. But I saw a player that really struggled to avoid people during his senior season, and so it's you can have highlights and you can say this is a really intelligent player. He's got that Notre Dame clip floating around where he's like, oh, we need to target Jeremiah Smith because this corner's playing inside leverage so much, or I forget what he says, but it's like he's a coach on the field. We love this kind of guy, But part of the thing is like he's calling plays for other people because he's like too old, So I don't. I think that he might be a little slow coming on, similar to the way that Jackson was. But part of his challenge for me was that I didn't see the quickness and the ability to separate against tight man coverage, especially his senior season, that I was hoping or that I saw in his sophomore year. And so because of that, whether that's from the tightrope or whatever, he's just got a second round grade for me. And I just have questions on him. And whatever athleticism, I don't think he'll be necessarily special. And everybody says that, right? We don't expect him to be special. He's a wide receiver too, but he's so smart and whatever. But that's not necessarily a useful guy, fantasy-wise. So for me, he's a little bit lower. And I think you can like him as a player and all that as far as what he brings to the team. But that doesn't. I don't think he's going to be somebody who demands targets necessarily. He'll have to be schemed them up, and there are a lot of players like that. And so that's not for me. That's not like a top 5 guy.
Yeah, and then also once they scheme him up for him, he doesn't offer that much special talent after the catch. So why would you scheme it up for him?
It's like I could scheme up something for Isaiah Bond, and I'm going to get a 70-yard touchdown.
Or a fumble and a run backwards.
Yeah, right. If he runs the right route or whatever. But that's a different. I would rather have that profile. I'd rather have that player, even as a coach. I'd rather have that player. So
yeah, completely fair. All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about quarterbacks. I know a lot of people have Cam Ward, quarterback 1. I'm trying to get to your grades now. I think you have.
Yeah. I got him as quarterback 1. Cam Ward is he's sloppy Caleb Williams. And so all the things that people didn't like about the Bears, Caleb Williams, of this guy doesn't know what he's doing, right? He's just so lost out there. He's always trying to improv and play hero ball. That's exactly who Cam Ward is in the very best situation that he's ever been in. And he could just do whatever he wanted behind the Miami O-line.
It's so funny.
I mean, just kind of silly. So Cam, I think, is a decent arm talent, and I like all the angles. I like being able to throw the ball, with being able to run around and throw the ball and have the vision to be able to do that. I think that's all good. But those are still Zach Wilson traits. The thing that I think made Caleb Williams so good in my eval was that his processing was very good and his pocket feel was really good, and Cam Ward doesn't have those things going for him. I would say the frustration I have with him is that he has terrible footwork, or he's sloppy in the pocket, and then he'll miss reads all the time that I think are generally fairly obvious. And he'll throw into coverage that has no business being bowl game, I believe, or maybe it was Virginia Tech, but both teams are wearing essentially the same colors. But so he's throwing a corner out to Restrepo into double coverage, and it's just they're in cover 3. You can't throw the corner out there. It doesn't make any sense, guy. And so there's very much the problem with quarterback play today is that so many of these guys are doing pure progressions, or they're working okay, this guy's open, this guy's not open, this guy's, and they kind of work through that way rather than reading the defense and knowing where the holes are and throwing to the holes. And so I see that with Cam Ward. I see that with Shadur. I see that with most of the guys in the class. And so I think that translation will be really difficult to complex NFL defenses. I mean, it was this Cal would do something weird in their coverage, and Cam, it's okay, well, I'm just going to throw it up, and
I'm just going to stand back here as long as I can.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not going to work in the NFL. So yeah, there's a lot of frustration there, but I think the talent is there. You can, he's got tools to coach up. He's definitely the best, I think, overall package. But yeah, for me, he's kind of like JJ McCarthy tier player. So I have him as a 79, which for quarterback scale is a little bit different. But 80 to me is anybody who can like start right away and be fantasy valuable. Cam Ward, it's like if I was coaching Cam Ward, I would sit him until, Will Levis throws 10 interceptions or whatever. I have a limit on how many interceptions he can tolerate. But like I let Cam Ward learn the NFL game and see all the mistakes that somebody else is making and kind of get settled there before I play him. Because I don't think he's going to be like a big problem solver because it's too complex right now.
Yeah, and who better to learn mistakes from than Will Levis? Like,
exactly.
Perfect. Just
you can see somebody else yelled at.
Yeah, go watch him. Okay, don't do that.
Right. Yeah.
So I think we're in lockstep there. If we want one guy that could possibly move into, being a top 12, even like top 15 dynasty quarterback, like I think we're both betting on Cam. If you had to pick one guy that sticks around the league for a while as a backup quarterback, keeps being relevant, we can throw him at the bottom of our benches in super flex leagues, who would you be betting on there?
Jalen Milroe.
Your RB2.
My RB2, Jalen Milroe, which I'm completely serious about. I think he'd be a phenomenal running back.
Someone draft him day 2 and make him Taysom Hill, but give him 20 touches a game.
That's the dream. If he goes to the Denver Broncos and they do this 2 quarterback thing with,
it's exceptional.
It would change football forever.
They're just running a speed option to the outside, but it's Milroe at quarterback, and then Nix is the running back. He pitches it, and then Nix has the option to throw.
Yeah, exactly.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I trust Milroe to throw. But, yeah. So, I think everybody kind of knows what Milroe is. A big question mark in his development as a passer, but, I think his quick game is actually fine. And so in that sense, like, great. With Milroe, you have the same challenge that you have with McCord or with Sanders or with Ward, where it's like, okay, you need to learn how to read a defense because you can throw the ball okay. Milroe would be a guy that I think, again, the rushing stuff with fantasy is so huge. So I guess Milroe would be my guy. I think with Shuck and Dart, they can be good backups. Shuck might even be like he's mature enough to start potentially right now.
You can do the Aiden O'Connell plan for success.
Yeah. Where I'd be able to tolerate a little bumping around. But I think Milroe has the highest upside. So for me, if it's about fantasy, then it would be him as my next option.
Okay. Very cool. Are there any, I don't know about you, but watching the quarterbacks just kind of made me sad. Because, I liked Quinn Ewers. I think he has a rocket of an arm at sometimes, and then other times it looks like he doesn't know how to throw the ball.
Yeah.
So that was painful. Shadur, I think, is just ballsy Tua, which one of the best traits about Tua is that he keeps the ball safe a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like, were there any quarterbacks that excite you other than Milroe and Ward, or is everybody else just kind of like, just take the running back?
Fantasy-wise, no. But NFL-wise, I really do think Shuck is kind of a fun potential, developmental guy.
Okay.
Dart is interesting because his scheme is very like, and this is how I would love to see most offenses run. But it's like you pick a side of the field, that's the side that you go to, and then if you can read the defense there, that's actually huge. And so Dart is actually reading the defense. He's not like Shadur where he's just looking and hoping somebody gets open.
He's
like legitimately making a pre-snap decision. He's deciding, okay, based on whatever's going on pre-snap, I'm going to go to this side of the field. And if that side of the field is dead, he's either working to his backside dig or he's escaping. And so that's a very Jaden Daniels process. He's not nearly as high level as Jaden is or fast as Jaden is in that. But in terms of like the criticism for Jaden Daniels was, oh, he's just one read and then he runs. Like that's totally an uneducated opinion on who he was at LSU. And that's a very similar criticism based on the offensive scheme that Jackson Dart has, and I would disagree with it in general. I think he has more tendencies of doing that, but as far as his process, I'm more confident that he's making decisions based on coverage. And so I liked some of that. And so, there's a little bit more of a base there to build on. But he's so weird because he will press at the end of games. If he's behind, everything kind of falls apart. In both Florida and LSU, it's just like, wow, you can't trust this guy. And so where Shedeur separates himself is in those like big moments. He's the same exact guy. So I don't think that's a very good quarterback, but he's not going to like fall apart, and so I think that's what really attracts people to like a Shedeur over a Dart. But yeah, evaluating that is also interesting. But but outside of Cam, I don't think there's a guy to get really hyped about.
That is unfortunate. So all the quarterbacks stink, other than maybe Cam in the right system if he sits for a little bit.
Yeah.
Tyler Shock, also famous developmental quarterback, will be 26 week 3. So
yeah, it's just one of those things.
We'll just develop him until he's 30, and then he can finally start, and we'll be good.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about everyone's least favorite fantasy position, tight ends. How many of these guys do you think can start for a team in the NFL? Not necessarily our fantasy teams, but you could confidently plug them in either as your inline tight end or as your move guy and feel good like I have a starter.
Oh yeah, I think Warren and Loveland are good. I think they're both first round picks, and I would draft them in the first round. I think they're both pretty good players. My third tight end is Arroyo.
Yep.
But he's kind of just like every other Miami tight end. He's fast and a little bit athletic with the ball. So like, great, let's throw him out there. His Senior Bowl film was kind of fun. He has a little bit more flash on his route breaks than what I saw in game, in season. And then, he just doesn't have a ton of volume to watch. So that's kind of his challenge. I know he has injuries and all that kind of stuff, but he's, I think, the tight end 3. And then everybody else is just the same guy. Gunnar Helm and Mason Taylor and Terrence Ferguson, they're all the same guy to me. They can be useful. Terrence kind of has fun hands, but that's just a one specific type of guy that I don't.
Yeah, I think
special.
All 3 of those guys are the like Jake Ferguson, Dalton Schultz's of the world, where if they're in Dallas specifically, they're useful.
Yeah.
Everywhere else, I don't care.
Yeah. That's a good take.
To completely go off the road, you talked about Arroyo having limited volume. I think we're pretty close here. Like, you like Damian Martinez, you don't love him. Is there a reason that Miami put their whole offense through their slowest and worst athlete instead of through the freak at tight end or the freak at running back? Like, why did that happen?
Restrepo fits Cam's game so well, right? He's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to dance around, wait for Restrepo to get open. That's the whole scheme. And it's very Mahomesy, Kelsey, right? And that's where they had all their success. So, I get it.
Well, there's a reason that Cam had to escape so long. It's because Restrepo's still running the 10 yards per route.
Yeah. What came first? The receivers are all open, or Cam doesn't know what he's looking at. Yeah. And Kelsey at 33 years old is doing all the same stuff. So
yeah, he still might be faster than Restrepo.
That's right. That's exactly what they call it.
Let's talk a little bit about Harold Fannin. Do you view him for your dynasty drafts? Like, where are you willing to take a player that, I'm looking at your grades, cannot block, but is kind of fun after the catch sometimes?
Yeah. He's hard. So the problem with Dalton Kincaid was that he was a terrible blocker, and you can't. And so just schematically, to get him on the field is a sacrifice. Like, I would rather 10 out of 10 have a receiver when I'm in that personnel rather than have 2 tight ends, because a receiver that's matched up against a nickel, right, is so much better than Harold Fannin will be, or than Dalton Kincaid is. And if he's not going to be useful to chip an end, then it really becomes problematic. So that and Dalton Kincaid, in my opinion, was really a very good hands, really natural after the catch, like a better route runner than Fannin. So there's a lot of those elements that are why I'm lower on Fannin. But yeah, it comes down to utility. Like an NFL team is not going to be able to use Fannin outside of 12 personnel. And that's hugely problematic for fantasy because you're not going to get the volume. So Brock Bowers is a decent blocker. You can use him all the time. Like it's very similar to Kyle Pitts, except he's just not fast like Kyle Pitts is. So what's the point? Like if you can't block and you're slow, you're a great college player.
Yes.
And so I think there's some developmental stuff. Maybe he gets a little physical. He's as big as a lot of the other guys, heavy weight wise. And I think there are some decent reps of him blocking. But yeah, it's troublesome because he's if you watch Bowling Green, he's always out wide, almost all the time. And he doesn't like blocking out wide. It's like try to touch somebody challenge, and he's just like waves his hands around and then claps after like all these tight ends are just clap after the play's over because they didn't actually touch anybody. I need to touch myself. So,
but he definitely chased somebody around for a little bit. Which,
yeah.
Like good work, way to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Out wide, he's not fast enough to catch corners, and then in line, it's like you're gonna block Penn State's defense. You're gonna block Abdul Carter. That's the plan.
Right. Yeah.
See how that goes.
Yeah.
But all right. Are there any other players that you just really got to tell the people that they should be drafting or that they shouldn't be drafting? Like anybody at all that is coming to mind? Not just tight ends. It can be anywhere.
Well, on tight ends, I think maybe hot takey, but Colston Loveland is a better route runner than Brock Bowers was.
I would agree with that.
And like just so natural out there. So he'll be really fun. And potentially, so the whole debate on him versus Warren, I think really comes down to how much are you going to actually use Warren in the run game. And if you get rushing touchdowns from Warren, like that's really hard to beat. But Colston, I think is special as far as he's not as good of a blocker as Brock, so you can't use him in the same way. There is a little bit of Dalton Kincaid danger, but I think he can be useful on chips, and you can use him as your movable guy. He's just not as exciting after the catch as Brock. So he's a whole tier lower. So he's still like an 84 for me is should be good, but the problem is he ends up being my third ranked overall player in fantasy this year for this class, you can tell how I feel about him. I'm just like, right? I think it'll be pretty good. And unique at the tight end position, and so that's exciting for fantasy. So I think he'll be decent. But I have two players over 85 this year, John T and Travis Hunter, and we don't even know if Hunter's gonna play much. So I am trading out of this class as much as I can.
Over 85.
Yeah, 85 is like fantasy starter. I think you can start him at fantasy right away.
I'm trying to look at last year. You had at least one quarterback and then a bunch of quarterbacks that we thought were definitely draftable. 1, 2, 3 receivers, a tight end.
Yeah, my
last year was fun.
Yeah, last year's good. Really solid. I'll pull up my other 85s. Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson. It's pretty obvious who the 85s are.
The good players.
The good players. Yeah, it's like, oh, this guy's good. He's going to play. So, yeah.
Immediate difference maker. But
there's only one, I think. And you're hoping that an NFL team will figure out the second one. So.
Oh, man. If we could just make Travis Hunter a full-time receiver, that would be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
I'd be all about it.
But cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I hope you had a blast. Do you want to tell people where to find you, what you're working on, all the good stuff that we're doing at the Astronauts?
Yeah, it's at Jet Pack Galileo on Twitter, and then ffastronauts.com. That's fantasy football astronauts. The rookie guide, we should get that done and published probably this weekend. And the main thing for that is you getting good, solid film grades that are better than anything that the NFL has ever produced. So just smarter, more intelligent, more accurate than anything that a billion-dollar industry could put together. Which, that's pretty high level. And a lot of that comes just from knowledge of astronomy and the way that stars move. It's really good for projecting things over. So if you like that kind of content, definitely come follow us. And cash, of course, is a key part of that. So just continue listening to him and subscribe and like to this, video.
That would be cool. We're 300 away from 1,000. So, guys, give us a little click.
Yeah, right on.
But thanks again, and dude, this was fun.
Yeah, man. Good hang out.
All right. See you next time. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Football RPG Podcast. If you made it this far, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to check out written content, head over to lastwordonsports.com.
Don't let the goblins get you.